Right now in South Korea, you can lose your entire life savings, your career, and your place in polite society for a crime that never actually took place. Imagine walking into a coffee shop, ordering a plain black coffee, and then being sued for stealing a 3-tier wedding cake that wasn't even in the building. Sounds insane, right? Like some bad comedy sketch where the punchline never lands. But for a 30-year-old man in Seoul, this wasn't a joke, it was his reality. He found himself trapped in a legal nightmare based on a false claim of sexual misconduct. Now, here is the kicker. There was no physical contact. Zero, none. They didn't even brush shoulders. Yet the police and the legal system didn't just walk in with a neutral clipboard. They walked in with a guilty verdict already written in their heads. This guy had 50 million won in the bank. That was his entire life's work, every single penny he saved. By grinding through his university years and working late shifts, and the system essentially told him, give it all up or face total social execution. He paid, but he lost his job, his friends treated him like a ghost, and he spent the next 6 months drowning in a bottle and fighting off panic attacks. It is like being told you owe the bank $1 million because someone had a dream that you robbed them. How did we get to a point where a person's decade of sweat and blood can be deleted by a few sentences that aren't even backed by a single grainy photo or a witness? But why would anyone actually demand this kind of setup? Why would someone look at another human being and decide to pull the trigger on their entire existence? If you dig into the dirt, you find that this isn't about safety or justice. It is a cold, hard business move. We are talking about the ultimate form of financial extraction. In the cutthroat world of modern Korea, where the gap between the haves and the have-nots is wider than ever, some people have figured out that outrage is a commodity. If you can't climb the corporate ladder, you can at least trip someone else and sue them for the privilege. It is raw, unfiltered capitalism disguised as a moral crusade. Some groups have turned the idea of victimhood into a high-stakes poker game where the house always wins. They demand these extreme laws because they want leverage. It is about having a button they can press to instantly strip assets from anyone they deem a target. The logic is simple. Why work for 10 years when you can get a 10-year salary in one settlement? It is a predatory market where the product is a man's reputation and the price is whatever he has left in his savings account. They aren't looking for a better world. They are looking for a bigger slice of the pie, and they are willing to burn the whole bakery down to get it. So you have to ask yourself, how does a modern high-tech society allow this to happen? How does a country that builds the world's best smartphones and fastest internet fall into a legal trap that feels like something out of the Dark Ages? The answer lies in a terrifying little legal trick called the doctrine of consistent testimony. Think of it as a magic spell for the courtroom. Usually, if you want to put someone in jail or take their money, you need things like fingerprints, video footage, or a trail of evidence. Not here. In these cases, if the person making the claim tells the same story over and over again without changing the major details, the judge can decide that the story itself is the evidence. It doesn't matter if the story is physically impossible. It doesn't matter if there were 50 witnesses saying it never happened. If the accuser stays consistent, the accused is cooked. It is a total flip of how justice is supposed to work. Instead of being innocent until proven guilty, you are guilty until you can somehow prove a negative, which is impossible. Society has decided that it is better to destroy an innocent life than to risk looking like they aren't taking these claims seriously. They have traded the truth for a comfortable narrative. They are so afraid of being called names by the loud voices on the internet that they have paralyzed the very idea of a fair trial. So what happened when they got exactly what they asked for? What happens when you build a system where every man is a walking target and every interaction is a potential lawsuit? Well, the men did the only logical thing left. They checked out. They looked at the dating market and realized the entry fee was a potential prison sentence and the loss of everything they owned. So they stopped playing. You see this massive surge in men looking outside their own borders for companionship. Our guy from the report? He found peace with a partner from Japan. He realized that the air he was breathing at home was toxic, filled with a constant fog of suspicion and legal risk. Other men are joining what people call the move to go their own way. They are focusing on their hobbies, their wealth, and their own mental space, leaving the traditional social contract in the trash, where it belongs. The hypocrisy is almost funny if it weren't so tragic. The government is pulling its hair out over the fact that nobody is having babies anymore. They are throwing money at the problem, trying to bribe people into getting married. But at the same time, they keep the very laws in place that make talking to a stranger feel like walking through a minefield. With magnetic boots, you can't tell people to fall in love while you're holding a legal gun to their heads. The fallout is turning into a full-scale social divorce. Men are now recording every single conversation they have. They are wearing body cams or using apps that stay on in their pockets just to have a digital alibi for their entire day. Think about that. Think about living in a world where you can't have a private chat without thinking about how it will sound to a judge. 3 years from now, public spaces are becoming these weird, silent zones where everyone is terrified of a misinterpreted look. It is a total collapse of trust, and why shouldn't it be when the system rewards the person who screams first and punishes the person who tries to defend themselves? Why would you ever trust anyone? It is a race to the bottom where the only way to stay safe is to be alone. The irony is that the people who pushed for these rules are now complaining that men are avoiding responsibility or being immature. No, they are just being rational. If you play a game where the rules change every time you're about to win, you eventually just stand up and walk away from the table. If this keeps going, we are looking at a future that looks more like a sci-fi dystopia than a functioning nation. We are talking about a world where you might need to sign a digital contract via blockchain before you even shake someone's hand. Every date will involve a video consent log stored in a government database. Companies will start segregating their offices by gender just to avoid the massive legal liability that comes with a single unsubstantiated whisper. The birth rate will hit zero, not because people don't want kids, but because the risk of being associated with another human being is too high. The state will be left presiding over a graveyard of social interactions, wondering why their virtue signaling didn't lead to utopia. It is inevitable because you cannot build a society on the bones of innocent people. You can't have a community when everyone is looking for a way to extort their neighbor. In the end, it feels like we are all being forced to play a game of chess where the other person can just knock over your king and claim they felt threatened, and the referee will give them your trophy because they look more upset than you do. It is a complete mockery of everything we claim to believe about progress and human rights. We have built these incredible cities and amazing technology, but we are using them to run modern-day witch trials. The guy who lost his 50 million, he eventually made it back. He invested in gold, stayed away from the domestic drama, and built a life on his own terms. His success is the final ironic twist. The only way to win in a system that is rigged against you is to stop giving it your energy, your money, and your future. You take your ball and you go home, or better yet, you find a new playground altogether. Because when justice becomes a fairy tale, survival becomes an act of rebellion. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.